In the sleepy little town of Maple Ridge, everyone knew about the Miller house. It stood at the very end of Birchwood Road, a skeletal structure against the gray sky, silent and abandoned. It was a place where shadows seemed to stick, even on the sunniest days. Teenagers, fueled by bravado and youthful ignorance, would dare each other to go inside. Most never made it past the rusted iron gate. They'd get a few feet up the overgrown path, feel the air grow cold and heavy, and turn back, their courage evaporating into the chilling atmosphere. The local stories were enough to scare them off. They said strange voices echoed from the house on moonless nights, ghostly whispers that rode on the wind. Some said the house itself was cursed, a place of deep, old sorrow that had festered into something malevolent. But 16-year-old Emma Collins never believed in curses. To her, ghosts were just stories told around a campfire, and a haunted house was just an old, neglected building. She was a skeptic, grounded in logic, and she was determined to prove to her friends and, maybe to herself, that there was nothing to be afraid of. It was a cold, biting October evening, the kind where the wind feels like icy fingers on your skin. Emma and her two best friends, Lucas and Brianna, found themselves standing at the bottom of the cracked front steps of the Miller house. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Their flashlights cut through the oppressive darkness like sharp blades, the beams dancing nervously across the decaying porch. As they got closer, the massive wooden front door, which should have been sealed shut by years of neglect, groaned open on its own, revealing a maw of blackness within. A shiver went down Brianna's spine. Emma, trying to sound braver than she felt, whispered with a shaky smile, "It's just old wood and wind. The house is settling." But her voice was a little too quiet, a little too strained. Stepping inside, they were hit with a smell that was almost overwhelming, a thick, cloying combination of dust, mildew, and rot. The air was stale and heavy, as if it hadn't moved in a century. The floorboards moaned and creaked under their feet with every hesitant step, the sounds echoing through the silent, cavernous space. Torn and faded wallpaper hung from the walls in long, drooping sheets, like dead skin sloughing off a corpse. The whole house felt disturbingly alive, as if it were holding its breath, listening to them, watching their every move. They cautiously made their way through a dark hallway, their flashlight beams sweeping over cobweb-draped furniture covered in white sheets, looking like a graveyard of forgotten memories. In the center of the room, the carpet was torn and shredded, as if something had clawed its way out from underneath. And there, revealed in the ruined flooring, was a dark, square shape, a trapdoor. It was already slightly ajar, a sliver of deeper blackness visible in the gap. Lucas swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing in the dim light. His voice was a strained whisper. "Guys, we shouldn't go down there. This feels wrong." Brianna nodded in agreement, her eyes wide with fear. "He's right, Emma. Let's just go. We came, we saw. Let's leave." But Emma's curiosity, a stubborn and powerful force, had taken over. The mystery of the trapdoor was too much to resist. Ignoring her friend's pleas, she moved forward and pushed the heavy wooden door wide. It creaked open with a low groan, revealing a rickety staircase that descended into complete and total darkness. The air that wafted up from below was colder still, carrying a faint, metallic scent, like old blood. Without another word, Emma pointed her flashlight down the stairs and started to descend. After a moment of hesitation, Lucas and Brianna, unwilling to leave her alone, followed close behind. They went down. The basement was freezing. The temperature dropped so suddenly it was like walking into a freezer. Their breaths instantly turned to white clouds of vapor in the flashlight beams. The space was larger than they expected, a labyrinth of damp, stone walls. Shelves lined the walls, sagging under the weight of countless jars filled with murky, unidentifiable liquids and covered in thick, ancient cobwebs. In the far corner of the room, a single, rust-stained metal chair stood facing the wall, as if someone had been put there for punishment, and scrawled on the stone above it, in what looked like faded red paint, were 4 chilling words: "Don't look behind you." As if on cue, a sudden, heavy thud echoed from the darkness behind them. It sounded like something large and solid hitting the concrete floor. Brianna let out a piercing scream that was immediately swallowed by the suffocating silence. They spun around in a panic, their flashlights frantically cutting through the shadows. There was nothing there, just the empty, sprawling basement, with shadows dancing and playing tricks on their eyes. Then Lucas gasped, a choked, terrified sound. His flashlight beam was shaking, fixed on something just over Emma's shoulder. "Emma," he stammered, his voice trembling. "Behind you." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She turned around slowly, her body stiff with fear. A woman was standing there, just a few feet away. She was dressed in a tattered, old-fashioned hospital gown. A curtain of long, matted black hair covered her face, and her skin was unnaturally pale, like polished bone in the moonlight. Her neck was twisted at a grotesque, impossibly ugly, as if it had been snapped. And as she slowly lifted her head, Emma saw her eyes. They were cold empty, and glowed with a faint, spectral blue light. Emma froze, every muscle in her body locked in sheer terror. The woman opened her mouth, but no sound came out at first. Then, a dry, rasping whisper filled the space, a sound like dead leaves skittering across pavement. "Don't wake him." As she spoke, the flashlights flickered violently, then went out completely, plunging them into absolute blackness. A moment later, they sputtered back to life, but the light was weak and unstable. This was impossible. There was no electricity in the house. And then they saw it. In the far corner of the basement, a corner that had been shrouded in shadow before, lay a huge, dark, wooden crate. It was massive, easily, big enough to hold a person, or something much larger. And as they stared, something inside it started to move. A slow, heavy, rhythmic sound filled the basement. Breathing. The lid of the crate began to shake, rattling against its rusted hinges. The breathing grew louder, deeper, turning into a low, guttural growl. "Run!" Emma screamed, the word tearing from her throat. The spell of terror was broken. They scrambled for the stairs, tripping over each other in their desperate flight. They bolted up the rickety steps, but just as Emma reached the top, the trapdoor slammed shut with a deafening boom. Locked. They were trapped. Behind them, the basement erupted with screams. But they weren't human screams. They were animalistic, enraged, and hungry, a terrifying chorus of pure, primal fury. Brianna pounded her fists against the unmoving trapdoor, her cries echoing in the confined space. "Let us out. Please, let us out." Down below, the crate burst open with a splintering crash of wood. From the inky blackness, a creature began to crawl out. It moved on all fours, its limbs long and unnaturally jointed. Its skin was cracked and gray, stretched taut over a skeletal frame. Its eyes were bloodshot and filled with a rabid intelligence, and its mouth was a nightmare of teeth too sharp, too long, and far, far too many. It started moving toward the base of the stairs in jerky, broken motions, like a marionette with its strings cut. At the same time, the woman in the hospital gown floated forward, her feet not touching the ground. She reached out a pale, translucent hand and lightly touched Lucas's shoulder. He instantly went rigid. His eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed onto the stairs like a puppet whose strings had been severed. It was as if his very life force had been sucked out of him in an instant. Emma, seeing him fall, grabbed Lucas's arm, trying to drag his dead weight up the last few steps. Brianna, in a frenzy of panic, started kicking at the trapdoor with all her might. With a final, desperate kick, the lock broke. The door sprung open. They scrambled out of the basement and didn't stop running. They fled through the house, out the front door that was still wide open, and across the overgrown yard, screaming as they ran. Behind them, they heard the basement trapdoor slam shut with a final, echoing thud. And then, the entire house fell utterly, unnaturally silent. They ran all the way to the police station, bursting in, hysterical and babbling about monsters and ghosts. The police, though skeptical, eventually agreed to investigate. They drove Emma and Brianna back to Birchwood Road. But when they arrived at the spot where the Miller house should have been, there was nothing. The house was gone, not burned down, not demolished. Simply gone. There were no ruins, no charred foundation, no splintered wood, not even a basement. There was just an empty, overgrown lot, as if a house had never stood there at all. Lucas was never the same after that night. He survived, but the boy they knew was gone. His eyes, once a warm brown, stayed a pale, cold blue, the same shade as the woman's in the basement. He never spoke a single word again. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind is quiet, Em and Brianna swear they can hear him whispering. He repeats the same two words over and over, the same chilling warning the ghost in the basement had given them. Don't wake him. And on those nights, if they listen very closely, they can still hear it. A faint sound seeming to come from deep underground. The slow, heavy sound of something breathing.